how do I negotiate a role where there are some pretty specific or strict pay bands, or, for example, government jobs, I'm in academia, where it's like a teacher role. How do I think about negotiations for those types of roles? Is it even possible to negotiate those? Okay, we are back.
We're just back from Albania. We got back Monday.
And for clarity, for those who don't know, Gerta is from Albania.
Albania.
It's not like we just randomly went to Albania.
Yeah, we went to Albania because I had a family emergency. I found out one of my uncles passed away, and I wanted to be there for my dad, whose brother was, and just I really missed my family. Since we moved to San Francisco, so when we lived on the East Coast in Boston, it was so much easier to visit Europe because it's closer, it's cheaper, the time zone difference is easier, and we were visiting, or I was visiting twice a year, and you were coming as much as possible.
Yeah.
And then when we moved to San Francisco, it's just such a hassle, so much further. And people may remember that I get very motion sick. And so, we've been going once a year. And I was just really missing my family. I'm very close to my extended family. And half to be there for my dad, but half selfishly to like absorb the family love that I've been missing.
Yeah, I mean, if there was any silver lining in it, I remember even before we heard about your uncle passing, in those weeks leading up to that, you did express how you were really missing your family.
Yeah.
And when this happened, it seemed like, hey, it makes sense for us to go and be there for your dad. When we went, so we stay in Tirana at your parents' home, but all we did was stay at home, work remotely, spend time with all of Gerta's family, lots of cuddles with her grandma, and she has 2 little baby twin cousins. Yeah. So it was really... workout and eating. It was like, there was no... It wasn't like a typical, Euro trip. It was just purely just family time. And also we kept mostly West Coast hours, both intentionally, but also unintentionally. We were so jet lagged. I feel like the older we get, it's harder to recover from jet lag, because I feel like we were there for about almost 2 weeks. I feel like I finally got over the jet lag the day before we were leaving. And then so now we're kind of like back in San Francisco.
Most, I think almost every night we go to bed at like either 3 a.m. or 5 a.m.
Yeah, although not much of a change from just our normal schedule, because both of us are kind of night owls.
Weekend schedule in San Francisco. That's what my friends were saying too. Yeah. I also want to take this opportunity to thank our friend Alan, who is, so Alex used to be in the Air Force, and so he has a lot of pilot friends. Alan is our friend who's a pilot with United. I hope that's okay to say. Yeah. And he has been so generous. If I understand correctly, there's a program for pilots where they can put you on their close family.
It's like their friends and family group. So basically, Alan can get us tickets where we can fly standby. So you kind of have to know how to learn the system of looking up which days and which flights seem empty for you to, because if there isn't a seat for you, then you just keep getting bumped to the next flight. But if you choose the right flight, then you can, if there are empty seats, then you'll be able to fly. Yeah. So he was so generous, right on the spot, he hooked us up with standby tickets all the way to Europe, and they're very cheap. I think you only just pay the fees and taxes, but you don't actually pay.
If you were on the standby list. Yeah. As opposed to if we had bought last minute, because this was so last minute.
Yeah, you bought the day before, 1 or 2 days before.
1 or 2 days before. So thank you so much to Alan, and just for treating us like family. That's so wonderful. Yeah. Cool. Maybe we wrap this up here?
Yeah, I think we can move on to negotiation topics.
Okay.
So we thought that for this episode, to set some context, we periodically do free negotiation Q&As where we advertise out to our communities, our network, that we've scheduled a Zoom call. Anyone can dial in, ask us any questions about negotiations, and we found that they seem to have been very helpful for people, and there are some questions that we actually see come up pretty often. So we thought for today's episode, we can actually just address some of those questions. So hopefully for all the listeners as well, they can get value out of the Q&As that we do. So
yeah, and if people are interested in catching the free Q&As, we post about them on LinkedIn or Instagram, so stay tuned there.
So the first question that we want to address that has come up, I think this gets asked almost every single time, is how many times can you ask for something or negotiate? How many back and forths are there in a typical negotiation for job offers?
And that's why I love that use logic in how we approach negotiation tips, which is so logically, imagine if I tell you, oh, you can negotiate 2 times or 3 times or 4 times. You're like, there's no way. What about this and that exception? So like, logically, there's no magic number. Can you imagine if I said the magic number is 5 or whatever?
Yeah.
So there's no magic number, but there is some magic words.
And what are those magic words?
So the magic words that will tell you when to stop negotiating are, this is our best and final offer. And it's kind of crazy. I still don't know why, but every company says it in almost those exact words.
It's like they all have a script like that they all tap into.
I don't know, like, there are other ways to say that this is the best we can, but it's always like either best or final or best and final.
Yeah.
I like somehow figured this out, and it's crazy. Like, it happens with every single client. As they're negotiating, they hit the ceiling, which is, hey, this is our best and final offer.
Yeah.
So there's no magic number. You can keep going. Of course, some negotiations, as we've said many times, it's a science and an art. And so I can't just tell you do this and it's true for every scenario in general.
Yeah.
And the art part is you need to read the room and read between the lines. And that's why it's helpful to work with us, because we know how to read between the lines. So for example, one of the lines we know how to read is, this is the best and final, and there's a 99% chance you should stop negotiating. Another thing is, for example, you're negotiating, and then they say, this is where we're at right now, but what do you think?
And so if they kind of ask for your input or have that little question at the end.
That, even though they may have signaled in some way that they can't do more, but if they say, but what do you think? It's an opening. There might still be room.
Yeah.
So again, you need to put all of this into context. Like, what have they been saying throughout? And there are things that they might be saying to just pressure you to stop negotiating, and they sound as if there's no more room to negotiate, but there is, and then vice versa. And so anyway, but the one that is pretty reliable is best and final.
I see. So when you hear best and final, it's important to understand what context is happening in, because if they add other things like, this is our best and final offer, what do you think? Then it might signal that there's still some money on the table.
I was thinking of, what do you think, separately from best and final?
Oh, I see.
Yeah,
Okay.
so those are like things to listen for. So when they say, what do you think, without saying best and final, it's likely that there's more room to negotiate. If they're saying this is our best and final, it's likely there's no more room to negotiate. This is what I meant. If they say both, you have to understand the broader context and think through that.
What about, so I've had maybe an edge case. So there was this one company I was interviewing with in my last corporate job when I was in the job search. In the very first recruiter screening call, and actually it was reinforced several times in other calls throughout the interview, they opened with, hey, just so you know, our company has a policy where the first offer we give is our best and final offer. I really need to talk to our founders about that because a lot of candidates are pushing back, yada, yada, yada. But just so you know, that's just our policy. And so I heard best and final in the very, very first conversation. How should I be treating that with what we've just discussed?
I love that you asked that, even though we hadn't planned that you would ask that, because it shows that there are edge cases and how important it is to put things into context. So we know logically that the first offer is almost never the best and final, because here's the logic. I loved math proofs in college. So a candidate, chances are very high that will have more than one offer, and they will be conflicted. And so they'll go to this company and say, I have another offer and it's better, or something, or like, I'm just conflicted, even if it's not better. So you as a company need to save something aside just for that edge case, if it is an edge case, but actually it probably happens all the time, where to show some goodwill and to show that you really want them, you set something aside to get them. Or even if you don't set something aside, you go to the founders and you're like, hey, we really like this candidate. We've given them a written offer. Everyone likes them. But they have another offer. Can we throw in some gesture money? Like, just to show a gesture. And so even if you hadn't set it aside, you could find it. And so that's why the first offer is almost never best and final. That's why you want to put things into context.
Yeah.
And this is why I just love bringing in the fact that people are like, oh, there's so many negotiations GPTs out there. Why do I like? Actually, we've never heard this, but we've never heard why do I need to work with you? There's AI, but it is in the back of my mind. We live in Silicon Valley, we live in SF, and we're surrounded by AI. And I do worry that at some point it will replace us. Right now, I have full conviction that it will not.
Nice.
Right.
Yeah.
We still add value, and this is the type of value. I think AI is really hard to find this nuance and the logic and all the edge cases and have all this contextual thing and just be deep into like how these things work in such a way that it would tell you the best advice given all this nuance and context.
I see, got it. And actually, just to come full circle on that specific negotiation where I heard in the first call, like this, the first offer is our best and final, we ended up negotiating that and I added 6 figures on top of the initial offer. So
they did have...
They did. It turned out it was not their best and final.
They had hundreds of thousands of dollars more.
Yeah.
Not even a gesture like $5,000 or something.
Yeah.
They actually had hundreds of thousands more.
Yeah, so never take what a company says at face value.
Yeah. Do not take it at face value.
Okay. Are we good with that one?
I think we're
else?
good.
Okay.
Yeah, next.
So the next question that we get is, how do I negotiate a role where there are some pretty specific or strict pay bands, or, for example, government jobs, I'm in academia, where it's like a teacher role. How do I think about negotiations for those types of roles? Is it even possible to negotiate those?
Yeah, I mean, there will always be edge cases, and of course, we can't just pull it all together like government, teachers, nurses, and all of that. One, I think it doesn't hurt to ask. If you don't ask, the answer is by default no. Mm-hmm. So always negotiate. As long as you do it in a cordial, professional way, there's nothing to lose. There's only upside. For government roles where the pay bands are posted, and I think teachers also have pay bands, you can negotiate other components. Maybe you can get reimbursed for some meals or transportation, or maybe vacation days or something else. The way I would handle it, I would come in and try to get another offer from something else, and I would negotiate and have the best hand possible. So getting other offers, being very cordial and professional, try to get a written offer and all that. And then just try and see what happens. Like, hey, I'm having a hard time saying yes to this because I have another offer. Like, is there anything you can do? Together, you can try to come up with a solution to sweeten the deal for you. And we don't know what that could be. It's impossible to know. That's literally the point of negotiations. We can't look into each other's cards. And so let them see what they can work with. And if it's not cash or a financial compensation, maybe it's something else.
Yeah.
This is why it's also important to be very clear on what your priorities are, because if it's other things beyond cash and equity or whatever is relevant in that role, you can maybe mention it. Like maybe it's a bit more vacation or something like that.
Yeah, I see. And one thing I'd like to add here is I love what you said about you should still ask, otherwise the default is no. Mm-hmm. Because there are some industries where the general understanding is that you can't negotiate, but that's not necessarily true. So we've actually had some clients, they're lawyers who are applying for jobs at big law firms. I remember with every one of those lawyer clients, when we spoke with them, they initially were like, oh, you don't negotiate this, or like you just don't negotiate your job or your offer when you get an offer from a big law firm. And every single one that we worked with, we actually got them extra tens of thousands of dollars on top of their initial offer. So just really test yourself if the fact that you can't negotiate, is that just something that everyone in the industry has agreed on that is just the default? Or is there an actual rule that is preventing it, right? Because sometimes we'll realize that it's just a norm that if you ask and you can actually find a creative solution, actually increase your comp and negotiate more.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I love when we've had lawyer clients because, first of all, a lot of people think lawyers are the best negotiators. There's brilliant negotiators everywhere, but I love that they're not the best negotiators by default. And I also love just showing them that, hey, you can explore things outside the box, and we've helped them make so much more money. Yeah. Pretty much all the lawyers we've worked with. And so it's been so rewarding.
Yeah, I wonder if it's because With lawyers, they are very used to just reading everything by the letter of the law,
Yeah.
the fine print, and it's not
as
standard
creative
to deviate from that. Maybe I don't know. I mean,
I don't
lawyers
know.
can be great negotiators,
Yes,
but
for sure.
if you're a lawyer out there, just know that you can negotiate your law firm job offers
Or anything else.
or anything else in life. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Last question?
Yes, last question. So the last question is, what do you do or how do you respond when the other negotiating party, so the employer, recruiter, whoever, starts actually turning very aggressive or they start getting almost hostile in their communications? Does that mean that the negotiation is at risk? You've made a mistake? How do you handle that situation?
One thing that helps reassure our clients is when we tell them that, hey, sometimes it's actually better to have an aggressive other party rather than someone who's actually being sweet and they are still not helpful. So some recruiters will be very aggressive and some recruiters will be very sweet to you. So we had a client where I get on a call, first call, and they're like, this recruiter and I are good friends, and they said this, they said that, and then I'm taking notes on the download of their situation. And then in the back of my mind, it's like, wait, the recruiter is their friend. Interesting. How do they know each other? How much will the recruiter help them? And I'm like, hey, so how do you know the recruiter? And they're like, oh no, I met them through the job application, but we're on texting basis, so we're good friends. I'm like, oh no, that does not mean you're good friends. Like they still have, they're gonna prioritize their interests. They're gonna play the game as it's played. Like
all they've done is lower your guard,
yeah,
right?
If anything, it's worse for you because now they've lowered your guard and you're probably oversharing. You're probably not playing the game right. I would rather my clients have an aggressive recruiter sometimes, because I know with an aggressive recruiter you also surprise them by staying calm and collected and grateful, and you bring their guard down. It's nice. We always recommend people stay cordial and professional, and sometimes if they're very aggressive and you just stay calm and you're like, it's been so great working with you, thank you so much for this, blah blah blah. Sometimes, because most people don't react like that, so sometimes they actually go an extra mile for you. But with the nice recruiter, the chances are your guard is going down and you're oversharing because now you feel comfortable. You're like, oh, they're going to advocate for me. You take things they say at face value. And for when I have clients who have super nice recruiters, I'm like, oh no, I worry they will be oversharing, even though I'm telling them don't overshare. I worry. Versus with an aggressive recruiter, I'm like, okay, your guard is up with them. Like you'll handle it a little more carefully. Yeah.
Awesome. Great.
Well, so point one was, don't worry about them being aggressive. It doesn't strongly correlate whether your recruiter is aggressive or super sweet. It doesn't strongly correlate with whether they will increase your offer or not. We have seen people increase it. That we have seen not like a lack of correlation between how a recruiter is behaving with you versus how much the offer gets increased. So that is good news. The other part, I talked about it indirectly, is that continue being professional and cordial. Assume best intent. Maybe they're having a bad week, a bad month. Maybe they heard they're being laid off. Like, they're not going to share with you. Who knows what's going on their end? Maybe that's just their personality, or who knows what's happening. Just give them the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah.
And just continue being your nice, cordial, professional self.
Yeah.
Those are the main points.
Yeah, I think there's a lot more even to dig into this specific, and maybe we should do a future episode just about how to handle an aggressive negotiating party on the other table, other side of the table.
But also a very
nice one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe we cover all the like archetypes. Yeah.
The MBTI.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, I think that's a great place to stop.
Yeah, we wrap it up.
So hopefully the listeners out there got some value out of that, and we'll see you at the next episode.
Okay, bye guys.
All right, bye.